Hi all, and welcome to this bite-sized video on adaptive teaching. The ideas that I'm going to go through within this video are taken from an author called Alex Quigley, who you can find online as someone called the Confident Teacher. Alex is someone who's been a teacher in the past and now works within a lot of educational research and educational charities to look at learning gaps for a whole range of different students. So the ideas that we're going to go through are hopefully going to allow you to grow your repertoire of responsive teaching, so we can really start to refine some of that in the moment teaching, but also be in a position where we can start to really consider the different resources that our students might need in order to allow them to be successful at the activities that we're asking them to complete. So in order to prevent adaptive teaching just becoming another buzzword that kind of loses its meaning, it's quite important that we define it and exemplify it so that we have a better chance of implementing it within our teaching. So we can categorize it into these two areas where micro adaptations are those sensitive moment-to-moment adaptations that respond to students' learning. So these are the things that we do in the moment that can either increase engagement or increase stretch and challenge within the room. The other side of it then are the significant adaptations. So this might be for students with a learning difficulty or disability, and the students may require these significant adaptations to ensure that they can have access to education. So this might be offering additional teaching assistant support with complex tasks. It's any of these kinds of reasonable adjustments that we can make when we're potentially supporting students with SEND. So whilst it's helpful to have examples of adaptive teaching and how we can put it into our practice, it's also hopefully helpful to present maybe some non-examples of what it isn't. So within that, we can think about what are the things that we need to do a little bit more of, and what are the things that we maybe need to look to reduce to make sure that we're adapting our teaching as effectively as possible. So what we'd look for is to have more scaffolds for students so that they can access those challenging whole group tasks. So actually enabling students to all be undertaking the same task, but having resources in place that allow all students access to all of the learning. Therefore, then, what do we want a little bit less of? Well, maybe those different worksheets for different subgroups. If we're actually trying to make this an equitable process, we need to make sure that everyone has access to the same levels of learning. We need to make sure that we have high expectations for all of our students in terms of what they can achieve within lessons. So ensuring that we have those modeled worked examples and those different scaffolds to support learning throughout. We need therefore then to do less of and avoid those almost and some learning outcomes, those things that therefore then become more exclusive than equitable, and actually therefore then saying to children that actually only some of you will be able to access this level of learning. Actually what we should be in a position to be able to do is open up all learning for all students. We need to make sure that students are given additional tasks based on diagnostic assessment, based on what we really know of them, but also based on the high expectations we will have for all of their outcomes. And what this kind of goes against is actually just giving them additional tasks based on a target grade, actually having informed processes and informed ways of making those decisions as to which students get what in terms of therefore then extending and stretching and challenging even more has to be based on what we directly know about each student in the room. So in order to kind of move away from some of those processes described on the previous slide, it's important that we are clear as to how we can adapt tasks whilst we can retain the same challenging goal for all learners. So over the next couple of slides, I'm going to give some examples of the four S's, as you can see at the top there. So scaffold, scale, structure and style, and how they might be implemented to therefore then lead us down this route of more adaptive teaching for all students. So the first example I'm going to give is taking maybe that quite common task of a self-portrait in art. Of course, when it comes to something like art specifically and all of our subjects, students will have varying starting points. So the difficulty of the task itself is going to be relative. So some of the students who might struggle could begin with a scaffold. So they might have a tracing of an outline of a face, or they might have a basic template to start with. From here, then, it might be that we can change the scale at which students work at. So increasing the size of the portrait, or even reducing the size of the portrait to look at much finer details, then changes the inherent challenge involved in the activity. It might be then that we can change the structure of the task, so actually focus then on specific elements of the face rather than the face as a whole, again just to change that challenge for different students. And then finally, it might be that we change the style. So it could be that we use watercolors as the medium for the portrait, as opposed to maybe using a crayon or pencil or something like that, where we would look to just increase that demand by using that different style, that different medium. And then as an alternative, it might be that we're looking at a writing task. So obviously within a scaffold, we might have planning frames, we might have sentence starters, we might have phrase banks. Any of these could also be used as frameworks and scaffolds for discussion as well. So not just the written work, but also any oracy elements that we might have involved could use the same resource to therefore then provide that adaptation to help all students access the learning. From here, then, it might be that we look to vary the length of the piece of writing. It might be that we ask students to include a certain number of adjectives, a certain number of metaphor within there as well. This obviously therefore then leads into the next one. So structure, it might be that we have that specific narrative structure to follow for our students, or we open it up and we get them to write independently. And then finally, it might be within the style, we're looking to imitate a specific author, or we're looking to imitate a specific genre within that written work. So finally, then we need to look at how we can maybe start to implement this for the benefit of the students. And actually what we can get to is we can get to a point where this can be much more student led. So if we're really explicit with the students, they can begin to make those independent choices about adapting tasks and activities for themselves. So it could be that we offer those choices, but actually making it really explicit, the kind of varying complexities of a given task, so that they can then be in a position to make those choices as to how they are going to build their own pathway to success. Obviously, then what we're looking to do here is to create those scaffolds that are going to move students to the top. And actually, what we're encouraging them to do is to not take the easy route out. If we offer too much choice in terms of different activities for students to undertake, it might be that some students actually avoid the difficult work and choose that easier content. So by creating scaffolds that go to the top, we're almost avoiding that race to the bottom. Actually, what we're doing here is scaffolding success as much as possible for every single student. The thing with this as a model, the four S's themselves, they're unlikely to perfectly match every single task, every single activity that you have in your scheme of work or in your curriculum. But what we're looking at here is thinking, well, actually, which of these four, or how many of these four, can we use in a moment, or can we consider their use in advance of any teaching episode to actually therefore then allow all of our students access to the very highest outcomes. If we have this in our minds, we're then truly kind of making those adaptations as opposed to giving our students a different diet based on their starting points. Anyway, I hope some of this has been useful. As ever, do get in touch if you've got any questions about it. And when you try some of these ideas out, please do remember to fill in the golden nuggets to let us know what you've done and the impact it's had on the students. Thanks a lot.